Hi, everyone. We're live, so if you can see or hear us, please let us know. Just wait a wee while.
Mm-hmm.
See if any of my friends out there saying anything. Got the chat open. Hang on, yeah. Yep, okay. So Marise has said hi, and she says that she can see us. So Marise, if you'd like to put on the chat as well, that'd be great. Okay. She said that she can't hear me, but maybe that's just me. Let me see. Okay,
Can you
David
hear
Orsi.
me? Brilliant.
Yes, thank you. So we have David Orsi, we have Sanchez Clark in the house. Welcome, Sanchez. We have Henry as well.
And we
That's my friend.
have Angie. Hi, Angie.
Yes, we do. We have Western Australia. That's my friend Henry. We used to work together, and then we have Sanchez as well. So I guess let's start. So I'd like to introduce Paul Witts from Life Transformation. Paul is an expert recruiter in the Agile space, and you have over 25 years of experience blending agency and in-house recruitment. You focus on empowering those navigating the job market, yeah? But just for today, our Banter with series, I know typically, there's a bit of humor and there's a bit of laugh with banter, but this is a serious topic. And I understand that a lot of us are in this position. The economy isn't great. So while Paul's insights may not directly help secure somebody a job, you aim to help individuals understand the recruitment process, offering a realistic perspective for those who may be vulnerable in these challenging times. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much, Vinny. Good to speak to you.
So, Paul, I guess I want to ask you the question that you typically ask all of us candidates when we come and speak to you. Tell us about yourself.
Yep. So, as you said, I've got quite a background in the industry. I've been working in recruitment since 1996, on and off, but mainly on. Started off in contracts, main background being electronics recruitment, but I've always been associated with IT. I've done both agency and in-house, probably about 15 years agency, 10, 11 years in-house. In my current role, I'm actually doing both. So I work for a company called Life Transformation, which is an agile business transformation consultancy, as most of you know. So I manage the function that provides candidates for the consultancy side of the business, agile coaches, scrum masters, product owners, etc., etc. And at the same time, I've set up what is essentially a recruitment agency inside Life to work the larger market. So that's kind of me. How can I help?
So, Paul, I'm curious, out of the 25 years of recruitment, how many years are actually in Agile itself?
Honestly, 1.5, 2. So it's been quite a bit of a crash course, really. My Agile journey, if I can be so bold as to say something like that, started in 2022. I was out of the industry, but I was looking to get back in it and earn some extra revenue. So I set up a recruitment agency as a side hustle, and Lithe was my first client, and we happened to get on with each other. I'd actually applied for a job with them, but I was a little bit too late. So they said, would you work for us on a third party basis, which I was delighted to do. And so, that was my crash course. And I think my first assignment from them was for a product owner, which while I was talking to Bram and Abby about the job, I was Googling on my phone what a product owner was. So yeah, probably about, I underdid myself, probably about 2.5 years now, actually, to be fair.
Okay. So just for the viewers that are watching us, you can ask questions and hopefully Paul will be able to answer them as well. We're just doing our re-intro at the moment. Paul, my next question is, everyone knows what an Agile coach does, right? Or everyone claims to know what an Agile coach does. how do
Yes.
you bridge the client's expectations of what the role really is? Because you more or less know what the role really is. You hang out with us, both you and Sanchez. You know, we have
Yeah.
hugged you in our community. You're
Yeah.
not, the both of you are not like other recruiters, right? And Nadine as well. That's the three that I know. You learn from us. You talk to us. So how do you bridge the client's expectations of what the role really is? And what the client thinks it is and what the client needs and wants are.
So quite often it's forgetting about a job title and looking at what the duties and responsibilities of a particular role are. Clients are normally fairly good at describing to me anyway what their situation is. And obviously one of the questions that I would ask is, where do you want to get to? You know, where are you now? Where do you want to get to? And how do you want to do that? And how does the Agile coach fit into that? Actually, probably the most relevant answer to this question came from Sanchez himself yesterday. A post that he made about a company that he just placed somebody with Agile coach. They said it's for a delivery role. We don't want an Agile coach. And he took it upon himself to put some candidates in front of them who matched what they wanted, and some candidates in front of them who matched what he believed they wanted, and they took one of his candidates, not one of their candidates. So I mean, that in a nutshell is a very good answer to that question. I'm lucky enough now to have met and spoken to a huge number of people in this amazing community, and you know, there is a huge amount of trust. So if I talk to a lot of you guys about a role, you're quite honest about whether the role was right for you. You're also very informative, and you'll tell me what actually needs to be done. You'll tell me how you would go about it. And it's my job to represent you guys to my clients in the way that you want to be represented. So that's how I do it, and that's how I bridge that gap. I ask you. I don't try and presume that I know the answer. And kind of the client gets a bit of advice for free when I submit your CV. One of the things that we do, if anybody's had a candidate interview with me, is that we always record it. We always record it on with an AI note taker. And I will always get your permission to submit the recording to the client. So providing I'm asking the right questions, the client can always tell from those questions whether or not that's the right candidate, regardless of things like job titles and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Just again, for our viewers, if you have any questions, Paul will be able to answer them. Paul, I guess now with recruitment and AI, yeah, what are your thoughts about it? I know a lot of us are on the edge. You know, we're wondering whether our CVs are really being read. Are they being filtered? You know.
Oh God, thank you so much for asking this question, because and this early, because this is one of the myths that I spend a lot of time dispelling. So first of all, I just want to let everybody know what your CV journey is. There are two main streams to get your CV. You'll either apply for a job through our website or through LinkedIn, and that CV will go into our applicant tracking system automatically, or I'll proactively contact you. You'll message me on LinkedIn and say, hey, hi Paul, I've seen this job, I'm interested, we'll have a chat, either by email or text or whatever, or on the phone or something, and I'll get your updated CV and I'll put it onto the applicant tracking system. So they're the two main general ways that I'll get CV. Once, let's say that you apply online, once your CV goes into the applicant tracking system, you will get an email from me saying, thanks for your CV, please complete our diversity survey. At that time, your CV is in my database with a status of associated. 100% every single time, every single CV gets a status of associated. It is not auto-rejected. There are some media for CVs, like LinkedIn does it, Indeed does it, most of the job boards do it. I can set questions like, for example, do you have a work permit to work in the UK? And I can set that to critical, or words to that effect, so that if you answer no, that might auto reject your CV. It's not my applicant tracking system doing it, it's a particular job board, because I can't work with you as a candidate, for example, if you don't have permission to work in the UK. My client won't sponsor a visa, so there's no point in taking that any further. That aside, once your CV hits my applicant tracking system, everything that is done with that CV is done by a human being. I'll just let that sentence sit with you for a second. Everything that is done to your CV or with your CV from the time it hits my applicant tracking system is done by a human being. It is not auto-rejected because you haven't mentioned the word safe 27 times. You've only mentioned it 25 times. Auto-rejected because of your name, or it's not auto-rejected because of any reason. It's not auto-rejected, period. My applicant tracking system, I'm sure Sanchez's applicant tracking system, whichever one you use, they all do the same thing. They have an AI matching function, right? So it looks at your CV and it comes up with the figure of a percentage. I'm always quoting this. My last 4 placements have had a percentage match of 32%, 54%, 67%, and get this, 17%. So according to my applicant tracking system, I should not have contacted any of the 4 candidates who got those jobs. Okay. So AI exists. The potential is there. We all know that the potential is there to auto reject. I don't know any companies, that's any hiring companies or agencies, who would use that function. And there's a very good reason why not. More than anything else, or above everything else, if you think about it logically, we work in industries, or we work in an industry, I work in an industry which is very much threatened by AI. There's AI currently being developed of me, and it wouldn't be me, it would be a model of somebody much more handsome, in a very sexy James Bond voice, to do your interviews, right? That is being developed. So we know that we're in danger. So why the hell would we be letting AI do our jobs right now? There would be absolutely no point in that whatsoever. That's quite apart from the fact it doesn't happen anyway, right? It just doesn't happen. For the reasons I've given, it just doesn't happen. Okay, we've got a couple of questions, Rennie.
Yes, we do. But do you want to finish your sentence, or that's good?
Yep, I'm done. So yeah, AI is there. It's all around us, just like it's all around every industry. But I just want to dispel the myth that anybody's CV is being auto rejected by AI. It really isn't.
Okay. All right. So maybe that's just you, and I know that you do things differently. Henry, we will come to your question because Nadine's question's got to do with ATS. If ATS systems are widely accepted to not work well, why are so many companies using ATS systems? Is it just because client-side HMs are using them?
So I mean, the basic functionality of an applicant tracking system adds value in operation. It does. It lets manipulate those searches, booleans. It should be, and it's historically always been, the first port of when you take a vacancy or an internal TA team. It's from that point of view, they do add value, 100% definitely. What we're saying is that we're just still using that basic functionality because it cuts down our time. It means that a lot of companies advertise their jobs on LinkedIn, and it costs them, especially if they promote them. If they can save themselves time by not even having to run that advert and getting a load of inappropriate applications by running a search on their database first, then they're going to do it. And that's all an applicant tracking system is. Essentially, it's a database. It's a candidate database. It's got whistles and bells, but if you look at the basic functionality, it very much adds value.
Okay, thank you. Hope that it answers your question, Nadine.
Does that answer your question, Nadine? Is that?
I think so. While we wait for Nadine's response to pop up, my friend Henry, who I worked with in Perth, Western Australia, Henry, I know, also does some hiring as well for Acodis. And Henry has two questions.
Brilliant.
The first question is, what are top 3 things that you look for in candidates for Agile roles?
Okay. If I'm wearing my thanks, Nadine. If I'm wearing my internal recruitment hat, I have 2 directors who are both very, very prominent Agilists, and I know what they look for a particular role. We have a discussion. First of all, the question is, are we looking for a contractor or are we looking for a permanent person? And that's a big thing. But in terms of skill sets, it very much depends on the role. Some companies they like the bank might insist you need banking finance, so or they might not, or they might say we want somebody from public sector or whatever. It depends on the role and on the company. It's a very difficult question for me to ask because so much of my selection is done on a candidate screening interview and how that conversation goes. So for an internal position, the things that I look for are cultural fit to the company, outlook on work, outlook on life, how well you work remotely, or whether you can do 2 days on site in London, all those sort of HR logistical questions. I would look for that, but I would also look for how you come across to me as a candidate, how you work with me, what the interaction's like, because I'm quite typical of somebody who works for Live. Know from that conversation whether you like the actual things to look for on a CV. Said that variable. I know that Abby, for example, he looks for outcome-based points on CVs. So he looks for what's been achieved, how it's been is. But I let him do that. I have them and I advise on whether it be a cultural fit, whether logistically, and those sort of things. So I can't give a 100% answer to that question because it depends on circumstance, but it's more to do with the conversation than it is with the CV.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be exhausting because different recruiters want things differently. Yeah. I think there's a bit of a lag between us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So saying that sometimes it can be a bit exhausting from the candidate.
Yeah, it froze just a second ago. So.
Yep. Are we back? All good? No, I think. Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm back. Yeah, I was just saying that it can be a bit exhausting from the candidate perspective because we try to, tailor every single CV according to different people and what the recruiter wants or how that might fit. So I guess Henry's next question is also quite apt. What do you think about candidates using ChatGPT to help tailor CVs and cover letters?
Oh, please don't. Please don't. We can spot them a mile off. Honestly, we can spot them a mile off. You're much better off talking to me, right? Seriously, whether it's for an internal role or for an you're much better off talking to me and explaining why you think you're suitable for the role. If that makes sense, we'll have a conversation. I can then tell you how to tailor that CV, whether it's for an internal position or whether it's for one of the agency, whether I'm working as an agency. I can tell you how to tailor that CV for me to submit get it, but we're seriously better off having a conversation and suitable for the role. I would avoid particular purple like the plague. Seriously, it doesn't look good, and especially for cover letters. For a CV, you can get away with it. For cover letters, please don't.
Yeah, I think it's very what you've just said is it's really apt. One of, I don't know who this person is. They're probably not connected with me on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with Paul and myself, please feel free to do it. And it says, I think the challenge we've seen, especially since COVID downturn, is that many of the non-top tier recruiters left the industry, and you've seen a huge increase in graduate intake. And we were talking about this as well, on how, you know, the increase of graduate agile roles, you know, where those days you did something before and then you work the trenches, you be part of the team, many teams, right? And then you have the skill set. So that appears to be happening in the recruiter space as well.
But it always has done. I actually, one of the jobs I had in the past was I used to run a division of a graduate recruitment company that placed graduates into the recruitment industry. So that is nothing new. The recruitment industry has always had a larger than average churn, staff turnover, because not everybody can do it, frankly, because it's a really tough career, agency recruitment. So the question is, how could we apply the lessons learned from the great recruiters to the bottom 90%? Okay. Very rarely is it the recruiters themselves, it's the companies they work for. They create a lot of the more negative characteristics of the industry that the industry itself suffers from. It's a really difficult situation and a tough one to answer, because nothing I'm going to say is going to be a one size fits all. I guess the best thing is that as a community, let's just look at our community, okay? What we can do, what everybody can do is, and I said this on I think maybe one of Nadine's posts or something like that. If you want to know what we can all do, is if you enjoy working with a recruiter and you feel that they add value to your job hunt, you feel that they do things in the right way, and that they have the candidate's best interests at heart, and that they're working in the way that you want them to work for you. If you find that, please tell everybody. Okay, you must know, in this community, people on this call must know hiring managers in companies. You must know decision makers in companies that hire people, right? Tell people you like working with Sanchez. Tell people you like working with me, right? I know in a way that's doing our selling for us, but you're only helping us to help you. We can only help you in circumstances where we're actually working those jobs. And the best way to get the recruiters that you like to work the jobs and to work with the companies that you want to work with is to tell people in those companies, hey, you should not be using that company because they treated me really badly. You should be using that guy because he treated me really well, or she treated me really well. I think if we all help ourselves and pass on that information, eventually we'll get to a stage where there's more people like Sanchez that you want to work with and fewer people like all the stuff that we read. So just help us to help you.
Yes. I really agree with that, because when I was in Australia, I used to work with a recruiter, and I know that the recruiter would look after me. And, you know, when I'm finishing my next gig, that recruiter will find me the next role. And it just made it a lot easier. And we actually build relationships there. You know, they would come out, take you out for lunch and take you out for coffee. Those were really, really good times. So David Orsi has a question. We just want to check if okay, Sanchez said bang on, so obviously he can hear Nadine was saying it's a bit echoey as well. So hopefully it's a bit better. David Orsi has a question. What are your thoughts on listing skills on the CV? I could probably list about half a page to my skills that I've gained over the last 25 years. I generally only go for what I think are the top 5 for a particular role. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I mean, I've been quite vocal about CVs on LinkedIn, and if David wants to go back through my post, you'll see loads of stuff about CVs. I've also put a link on my LinkedIn profile to something that I it's not exactly a template, but it's more of a guide actually about how to construct your CV. Please feel free to use that. It's all free. And you know, I think it is helping some people. But anyway, in regards to the actual question about skills, there's basically 2 ways of doing it. Sometimes you might be able to cover those skills in your employment history, but if you feel that you can't, and at the end of the day, David, this is your CV, it's not my CV, so you present yourself in the best way that you feel you can. But if you've got like 273 different skills, probably maybe limit them to the ones that are most relevant to the job that you're applying for. Unfortunately, it is one of the things that in these days, one size fits all CVs don't really cut it. You do have to adjust your CV for most jobs that you apply for, and so just think about your skills, limit it to what's relevant, and don't worry about stuff that isn't. Where you put that skills section on your CV, I would normally put it after. This is just my personal preference, right? Don't have to do this. But I would normally put it after my career history for the simple reason that I want my first job to be on that first page of that CV. As a recruiter, if you want to know generally what we look for, generally I'm looking at the last 3 jobs. So the most recent 3 jobs, that's what I'm looking for. And so ideally your first job at least should be on your first page.
Okay. So you mentioned that there's a free template on your LinkedIn that anybody wants to use. I've also recently read, and also through our interactions, we've known each other for quite some time.
Yep.
And you've never really held it against me that I still want to hold on to my company. I'm contracted for 10 years, and you were actually quite encouraging and quite supportive of that. You don't only give a template. I recently saw a post that you actually rang someone and gave them feedback on their CV, and that had nothing to do with the job that they had applied with you or anything like that. You seem to be doing some really nice things, and you genuinely appear to care about us. Why?
Because I've been in the position of somebody looking for work. I've been desperate. I know what it's like to very nearly lose your house, and I know people who've lost their houses, close friends of mine. I've known people whose relationships are split up because they've been out of work, and without being sexist about it, I hope this doesn't come across as sexist, but it was the husband who lost the work and the wife left with the kids and went to live with their parents. I know people whose mental health is suffering because of it. I know people who've attempted to take their lives because of it. So my question, I'd answer that question with a question: is why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't anybody who is in a position that they can help people find jobs actually find those jobs? The crazy thing, right? This is the crazy thing, and I'll come back onto that, into what I've just said in more detail, but I just want to put it into this context, is that with all the people out of work and looking for work and all the green circles and everything else like that on LinkedIn, there are still companies who use people like me because they can't find people like you. Just sit with that for a second, right? There are still companies who engage with people like me, engage with people like Sanchez, because they can't find people like you and people like other guys who are listening on these calls, right? So that's the crazy thing. So where's that disconnect? Why are companies still engaging with agencies? Well, there are a lot of reasons why they engage with an agency, because we provide other services apart from just sending a CV. But if you think about it, there must be a disconnect somewhere, and that disconnect is often with the CV, and often maybe with the way people are presenting themselves, and the way people are looking for work, and the media that they're using. Why do I help? Because frankly, the more people who are in work, the more people who are paying tax, the better the economy is, the more companies that have money, and the more companies that are going to use my services. It's not altruism at all. It's realism. And I always use the hashtag "in this together." I think we are all in this together. I think if we all work together to get more people back to work, more people paying tax, more people buying more houses, more people buying more cars. That means all Ford and Vauxhall and everything else, right? The more money in the economy, the more people are going to use me, and the more I can employ you. It's kind of a circle.
Yeah. Thank you for touching on the mental health component, because of late you see there's one role and there's probably 100 applicants within a few hours. It
Yep.
seems that you're always on the edge, on your phone, always waiting for notifications. You want to be the first person, because hopefully, your CV will be picked up first. And
Yep.
it does create that anxiety, like you have to be first. But it's not only the mental health. It's also physical health, right? You're holding the phone all the time and your shoulders are aching. So thank you very much for addressing that. And as Marie say, she's from Netherlands, and she says your compassion is impressive and impactful, Paul. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that kind comment. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we have a question: is the CV still relevant?
Absolutely. It's completely relevant. There are situations where, especially if you're working in the contract market, when the contract market is at its peak and working as it has been, where an agency recruiter can take a vacancy from a client and say to the client, right, I know someone who can do that. I've got, you've got that sort of relationship. Her name's Vinny. She can interview with you in half an hour. And the client says, well, can you set me up with a meeting? Right. Those circumstances are very, very few and far between. The CV is still very, very relevant, and it's evolving all the time. There are new ideas about how to do CVs and how to make them more relevant. But yeah, absolutely, it is. I couldn't do my job without people sending me CVs. Let me put it that way.
Okay. So, how, like, we're speaking about the economic situation and where we're at, and you've obviously lived through a lot more economic downturns than I have, or some of us have. And if I look at economic cycles, and I did study a few economy papers, and I think the cycle kind of goes like boom, bust, recession, and expansion. I think that is usually the cycle, right? You have expansion, peak, contraction, and recovery. How bad is the economic situation that we're in at the moment compared to the others that you've seen?
Right. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for drawing to the attention of everybody that I'm very old. I really appreciate that. So I have worked through year 2K, 9/11, banking crisis 2007, 2008, COVID, and this one. This is by far the worst. It's worse than any of them. It's worse than 2007. It's worse than COVID. It's worse than any of them. And one of the reasons why I think it's worse, well, first of all, it's statistically worse. It's gone on longer. Is that there's no good reason for it. Like, nobody's flown a plane into an American skyscraper. There's no global pandemic. No banks have lent too much money to people who can't afford it. There's just no reason for it, apart from insecurity. just like literal insecurity. That's the only real reason for it. But yeah, this is the worst one, and it's gone on longer than anything I can remember. So that's what was the second part of the question, Vinny? Sorry.
I guess that was the question.
Okay.
I'm not so sure
Sorry.
there was a second question, but Nadine has just chipped in saying if the candidate is negatively impacted by something in the recruitment process, 90% of the root cause of those problems still sit with the client side hiring manager or the internal politics and chaos of the hiring company.
Yep.
The 10% that's left usually relates to poor comms or the bad recruiter and excessive volumes and not being able to respond to all.
Yep.
When you might receive anywhere between 500 to 3,000 candidates for one role. That's a lot. Like me hearing that, knowing that I'm 1 in 3,000, that stresses me out, I guess.
So I mean, Nadine's estimations and posts is 100% accurate. So yeah, 90% of the poor communication, 90% of the poor candidate experience, unfortunately, does lie with the end user, the end hiring company. Absolutely. Not all of them. Thankfully, there are a lot of really decent companies out there with a lot of very good TAs and the right attitude to candidate experience. But there are also a number of companies who really don't care about that, especially in the current market. So the numbers of applicants is something that is a problem. It's a massive problem. Not just the numbers of applicants of qualified candidates, but what really upsets the apple cart and is a real problem are the numbers of applicants of candidates who just frankly won't get that job. There are two things at play. One of them is the number of applicants from people who don't have the right logistical qualifications, like they don't have a work permit or something like that. They're applying from outside the United Kingdom to a job that no company is going to be able to get to sponsor a visa for in the current market. Or they're applying for jobs that they aren't being realistic about the chances of their getting that job. We have to, again, going back to the root cause of that, the root cause of that is desperation. And I get it. I'm not going to criticize anybody for being desperate. I'm not going to criticize anybody for acting on that desperation and literally applying for anything at all they could possibly do. But everybody applying for a job has to be realistic about the conditions of the current market. No matter what job you go for, you will be competing against a large number of people who are 100% match. Not a 90% match, not a 95% match, and certainly not an 80% match that's good enough in normal conditions. That you're going to be competing against people who are 100% match. And if you're not 100% match, you're not going to be selected for interview. Nobody's going to take a chance on you because there are 100% matches out there. But I think everybody knows this. I think deep down everybody does realize this, but desperation gets people applying for jobs that they're, maybe only a 70% match or something. And what that does is for people like myself is that, gives us hundreds or even thousands of candidates to wade through to get through to the CVs of people who actually can do the job. And obviously the problem inherent in that is that, realistically, I'm not going to go through 3,000 candidates. I don't have the time to go through 3,000 candidates. I really don't. I wish I did, but I honestly don't. And so I'm, once I've come across 4 or 5, maybe in the top 200 or 300 who are suitable for the role, I'm going to go with them. And obviously there are another 5, 10, 15, 20 people in the other 2,000, let's say, who are also qualified for the role, who, if I didn't have that number of applications from candidates who aren't suitable and know it, or aren't qualified and know it, I would get to those CVs. But I don't ever. And I apologize. I really do apologize for anybody who's applied to my jobs or any roles I've advertised and they're suitable and they've been rejected and they don't know why. And I haven't got to your CV because of the numbers. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, apologize. but I literally cannot go through every job. So the point of that is to maybe ask anybody who's applying for a job, please be realistic. You know, are you applying because you think that you might get a chance, or are you applying because you think, yeah, that's my job, that job description was written for me? If it's the latter, please obviously go ahead. If it's the former, I understand the motivation. I totally do understand, and I can't criticize, but please think about it, and please think about other people in your position who might be as desperate as you, but won't be assessed even though they're right for that job.
Yeah. But you know, sometimes, Paul, if you hire for everything that you can do, then where's the fun in that, right? Sometimes you do apply for things
Yeah,
that,
no,
if not, I won't grow, right? So
yeah,
sometimes I know, okay, if I hit 60 to 70%, I should be fine. Everything else I can learn, you know, hopefully they'll like me, they'll like, you know, my can-do attitude, or how I can, you know, build relationships. Maybe.
but the reality is, in the current market, you're not fine. You're not. You won't get it. On 70%, you won't get it. Unless I know a company that's actually said, you know, we'll be flexible over this, that, or the other. But they're not saying that at the moment.
Yeah,
So
because it is quite boring to just do the same thing here and then to apply
yeah,
for exactly the same role there.
exactly. Exactly. And it's really boring wading through 3,000 applications.
Yes.
But you know, these are the conditions in the current market, and we've just got to see this current market out.
100%.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's the fact.
So on to that, and I know Nadine has given her viewpoint in the chat. I quickly want to say hi to my friend Shari from America. So Paul, you know, there's a lot of people joining us
Hi,
from
Shari.
all the way from Australia to America. Marise says, honest
Brilliant.
question for advice, Paul. Imagine one has imposter syndrome. People tend to undervalue their capabilities in their resume. How to make your resume impactful while balancing your own imposter syndrome.
Okay. So I think with imposter syndrome, that normally comes from thinking about how good you are. It doesn't come from thinking about actually what have I done. So if you isolate your own estimation about how good you are from what you've done and just work with what you've done, you can actually create a very impactful CV from there. You don't have to describe yourself as the best. You don't have to describe yourself as amazing or outstanding or brilliant or any of those words, which actually, to me as a CV reader, mean nothing. What you can do is you look at what you've done and you report what you've done in a particular way to make an impact. Okay. So things that make impacts at the moment is anything that you can put a price tag to, anything you can quantify in terms of money saved, time saved, reduction on money spent, or anything like that. Yeah. That's always going to make biggest impact. Now, obviously, that's not always possible for people in our community, but you need to start thinking when it is and focus on that. More than that, so expanding from that, that's position A. Position B are outcome focused bullet points, if you want. Now, not everybody bullet points their CV. You don't have to bullet point your CV. You can do this without bullet pointing, but I'm just going to put this in bullet point terms so that because it's easier to explain. So I was going through somebody else's CV yesterday and just having a look at it. And I was mentioning this because of this conversation I had with a client a couple of days ago, where they mentioned about what they want to see as outcomes. So rather than saying something like I facilitated or I was involved in or something like that, if you think of the outcome first, what actually happened? What was the result? So the result could be reduction in time to market by 2 months. Yeah. So that's the first part of your bullet point. Reduction in time to market by 2 months by coaching product owner on, and again, excuse my lack of knowledge here, but I'm just using this example, by coaching the product owner on backlog prioritization and removing barriers from Scrum teams by whatever. Okay. So what you're doing is putting the outcome first, what actually happens. Then you're describing the methodology used to achieve that outcome and exactly what your input was. So if you have imposter syndrome, that shouldn't affect it, because all you're doing is reporting, but you're reporting in a particular way that is going to make a massive impact on your CV. And you can do that in bullet points in for each job, or bullet points for achievements at the top of your CV. Does that help? Just asking.
You're breaking up a bit, Paul. I think so.
Does this any better? Good.
Yes, much better.
I was just asking, does that help? Yeah. Does that answer the question for whoever asked the question? Sorry, I forgot.
Marie, yes, I hope.
Marie, does that?
I think there's a bit of lag when they chat on LinkedIn,
Sure.
and then between it includes. We're coming up to the end of our time. In fact, we've actually gone a lot more than we thought we'd go, because we thought we'd run.
That went so quickly.
Yes, and we thought we'd run this as an experiment. I mean, I help companies by solving actual business problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought, why not start closer to home? This is a problem that we are facing in our industry, and you recruit and you specialize in this industry. So why not help for all of us? So I'm hoping that if this does kick off, and we had a chat about bringing Nadine and bringing Sanchez, maybe having two of you all or three of you all at the same time, and people can just interact, right? You seem to have a really great community with the recruiters yourself. I'm just wondering if there is any interest next time, if we do put out these things, please share, repost, like, and comment, because I'm posting from a site that is external and LinkedIn doesn't really seem to like it. But if you feel that you like this and you got value and benefit from Paul's advice, please let us know. More than happy to put something together. Paul, you wanted to say something about your colleagues in the recruitment industry, don't you?
Do I? What did I want to say? I've got a very bad short-term memory. I want to say something about my colleagues. Yeah. Okay, so basically, it's a story I told when I was talking to somebody else quite recently. We're not all bastards. We're you can talk to us. Some of us actually do want to do the right thing. So please use us. Please ask us if you want us to have a look at your CV. I know that Vinny and I actually disagree over this as to how many recruiters will do this, but I will certainly do it. I'm sure Sanchez to do it. I'm sure other recruiters who know what they're doing will be happy to do it. Please ask us. Please consult with us. Please use us as much as you can. You don't actually have to listen to us, but we can be of help in some things.
Thank you. I guess before we go, did I miss anything? Did I not cover anything? Did you want to say anything? Now's your chance.
Thank you, by the way, to everybody for engaging. Really, really appreciate the engagement.
Okay. So if there's if there's nothing else, no more words of wisdom from Paul.
I'm done.
Can people?
I've done all.
Done.
That's all the wisdom that I can ever impart. I'm out of wisdom.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Paul Witts. It's been a pleasure having you on, and thank you all for joining. And I know we always say the right people are the ones that join. If you think that this could help somebody, and we did promise you, we said it wasn't a sales call, wasn't it, Paul? I mean,
no, definitely not.
What do you have to sell? The economy is so poor, right? There are no job roles out there. Someone even says, like, we love you, Paul.
I know, and they haven't even attached their name, which is no bloody good whatsoever.
Connect with us.
Yeah, indeed.
I guess that's all from us, and hopefully see you again sometime. Thank you very much, Paul, for coming on the Banter with series. And
absolute pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Those who came are definitely the right ones.
Indeed. Indeed. Thanks, Vinny. It's been emotional, as I knew it would be.
Thank you.
Actually, hang on. I said it's been emotional. That was Vinny Jones. That was Vinny Jones.
Oh, right. So that's V at the end, huh? Vinny Jones
Yep.
at the end.
Indeed.
Right. Great.
Thanks,
So
guys.
Thank you. I have no idea how to end the stream, so I'm going to see if I could end this. Let's just shut this off. All right. Thank you. Oh, hang on. Here it is. End stream. Not very good UX there. Not obvious. Okay.